At least 19 councils are understood to be considering legal action over migrant hotels. This follows the High Court granting a temporary injunction to block asylum seekers from staying at the Bell Hotel in Epping.
ITV News spoke to a migrant staying at that hotel. This is what he had to say.
Life is, uncertain. Even if they were to take us to another hotel or to another area, it's going to be the same. There are going to be another people, protesting, to get us out of the hotel or to close the hotel because they have the same thing. They are concerned about us because they see us as criminals, as paedophiles, and we are not.
So what's the answer? Well, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has written to the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper demanding she rules out moving asylum seekers into housing needed by British families. He joins us now. Good morning to you. So you are calling for action on this now, but we understand you were the immigration minister at the time who first put migrants into the Bell Hotel in Epping, weren't you?
Good morning. Well, the Bell Hotel was used previously. It wasn't a personal decision I made, but it was used previously. But the previous Conservative government then closed down the Bell Hotel, and they were right to do that. The Labour government then subsequently reopened it. So, look, I wrote to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, yesterday, asking her to convene an emergency cabinet meeting about the borders crisis which Labour is presiding over. Because really you've got to go back to the source of the problem, which is that people are entering the country illegally over the English Channel and winding up then in hotels or other forms of accommodation. And these journeys are completely unnecessary because France is a safe country. No one needs to flee war in France. The journeys are illegal and they need to be stopped. But unfortunately, since the election just over a year ago, the number of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel under this Labour government has surged. It's gone up by 47%. And this year so far has been the worst in history for illegal immigration over the Channel.
The issue is, though, this is that, situation's been building for years, hasn't it, under a Conservative government. We know the illegal small boat crossing started happening first in 2018. They then reached a height of 45,774 in 2022. So the Conservative government didn't get a grip of it at the time, did they?
Well, I don't think that's entirely true. So they did start 4 or 5 years ago. You're quite right to say that. But in the last full year of the last government, which was 2023, the small boat numbers actually went down by about 30%. And there was a plan to go even further by implementing the Rwanda deterrent, whereby everybody who arrived illegally over the Channel would get removed. That would have an obvious deterrent effect because if you're going to get removed, why bother crossing in the first place? We saw something similar work in Australia 12 or 13 years ago. The USA actually has done something very similar in the last 6 months, which has worked as well. But and that scheme was due to start in July of last year, just after the election. But when Labour won that election, what did they do? They cancelled the Rwanda plan just days before it was due to start. And as a result of that, the numbers, instead of continuing to go down, instead started going up. And they haven't just gone up, they've surged. And this year has been the worst ever because Labour didn't have any replacement. They had this, we're going to smash the gangs gimmick, which they don't talk about anymore. That's now a sort of bit of a joke. And now they're saying they're going to take 50 people a week to France. And that won't make any difference either.
But hang on, you might say smash the gangs gimmick. We had to stop the boats gimmick, and that clearly didn't work. And we can argue about it went down 30% one year. It might have gone up the following year. But the point is, it happened on your watch as a government. And you talk about Rwanda. That cost this country £700 million. And I don't even know whether we got any of it back. I'm told Rwanda's refused to give any of that back. That is a ridiculous amount of money. Only 3 went to Rwanda, and they went voluntarily, and the High Court ruled it wasn't a safe country. Your plans didn't work. Let me put it to you now. If they're not in hotels, what would you do now?
Well, let's take each of your points in turn. So on Rwanda, firstly, the scheme never actually started. The first flight was due to take off at just about 3 or 4 weeks after the general election. There were court challenges, as you say, both in Strasbourg and in the Supreme Court, actually, here in the UK. And we had to pass a law through Parliament to basically deal with those legal challenges. That's why the start was delayed. But the scheme never actually started. In terms of the cost, because Labour then cancelled it just after the election. Now, I think it would have worked because a similar scheme worked in Australia, and I've already explained how if you're an illegal immigrant in France and you know if you cross the Channel you're going to wind up in Rwanda, you're almost certainly not going to bother attempting the crossing. That's why it worked in Australia. Now, on the cost point, yes, it did cost several £100 million to get it set up and to then run it. But if you measure that against the money that Labour is now spending on the asylum system, on hotels and flats and goodness knows what else, that is costing several £billion per year. So while, yes, you're right, £700 million is a lot of money, if by spending that you stop the crossings and thereby save billions and billions of pounds a year, that is obviously worth doing.
But you forget that the High Courts and the Supreme Courts, they've said it was an unsafe country. Are we really going to say that we're going to actually say, well, asylum seekers who may well be, and a lot of them are genuine, we know, and we've got to start telling these facts, that 70 to 80% of them are genuine asylum seekers leaving war-torn countries. Are we seriously saying, as a country of Britain, our British values are that we would send them to a country that is unsafe, where we know they shot down refugees in the street in that country who were begging for food? So we would say, as Britain, we'll send you there?
Well, again, a few points to answer. So first of all, the people crossing by small boat obviously are not departing from a war zone. They're leaving France. Now, and they've very often travelled through not just France, but also... Please, let me finish the point.
Because we don't have enough time. But you know they have every right to come here. They don't have to stop at the first country. We know that is not true. They have every right to here. We have a long history of refugees coming to this country. We would never have any coming here if we said stop at your first country. Everyone's got a neighbouring country.
We will... Listen,
we would never have any refugees here.
These are mostly young men who could easily claim asylum in France. Of course, we have moral obligations.
They can speak English.
But we meet
Some
those,
of them work with our Afghanistan military, Mr. Philp.
Okay,
Some of them work with Afghanistan, and they were left there. And we've seen now with the MI6 situation that their lives have been further exposed. So don't we have a duty to look after these people?
Yeah, we do. And we have brought over directly 25,000, I think, or even more than that, Afghans who worked with British forces. We have discharged that moral obligation. We've welcomed 200 and something thousand Ukrainians, a couple of 100,000 people from Hong Kong.
We put on a separate scheme for Ukrainians. I'm glad you mentioned the Ukrainians. We put on a specific system and scheme. They could go to the next country next to them, Poland, and get a visa and come here. We're not offering that the same to Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq or any of these countries.
Well, let me correct you. Actually, we did offer a scheme like that to people in Syria during the civil war.
It was nowhere near as big as 200,000, and we didn't ask the people of Britain to budge up and open up a spare room for them and pay them to do it, did we?
So where there are genuine crises, including Syria, you were wrong a minute ago to say we didn't welcome Syrians, including Syria, we set up bespoke routes. You've also got routes like refugee family reunion. We should be able, the British Parliament and the elected government should be able to decide who we would like to prioritise, and we chose to prioritise people involved in the Syrian civil war.
Can we go back to my question? Do you think it's OK to send them to an unsafe country where refugees have been shot by the Rwandan officials, have shot refugees in the street who are begging for food? Are you saying that Britain is happy sending people to a country like that?
Well, it's not just the British Parliament that was happy with that. The UNHCR did as well. The UNHCR themselves, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, sends refugees themselves from places like Libya to Rwanda. So if the UNHCR considers it safe and suitable, I think it's reasonable that we do as well. The court's concern, let me finish the point, the court's concern that you referred to was specifically about the risk that somebody would get sent from Rwanda to their country of origin, which might not be safe. That was the court's concern. And that's why the last government entered into a treaty, got binding commitments from the Rwandan government. They wouldn't do that. And we passed a bill through Parliament in order to overcome and deal with the concerns the court raised. But the point is, Labour cancelled that scheme just days before it was due to start. And as a result, illegal immigration over the Channel from France, and France is a safe country, illegal immigration has surged to record-ever levels under this Labour government. They've got a migration crisis which is of their own creation, and that is why we then have these problems with hotels and everything else.
OK, and back to the situation now with that hotel. You are saying that migrants shouldn't be housed in hotels, they shouldn't be housed in houses of multiple occupancy or houses that are needed for social housing. What is the solution then? Because we know with the barge, Bibi Stockholm, there were issues, there were health issues. We also know with things like the military bases, there have also been health issues, legal challenges over that. They end up costing more than hotels. So where do you propose that these migrants are rehoused to?
Yeah, well, I'll just point out firstly that the last government did reduce the number of hotels by 200 in the space of just 9 months. But unfortunately, under the Labour government, that trend has not continued. The real point is to stop the crossings in the first place, as I've described how you can do that by removing people who arrive here.
So where should these migrants go that are moved out of this hotel? Because potentially it's not just these ones at the Bell Hotel, is it? You were urging Conservative councils to then threaten legal action over more hotels. So we could see many, many more migrants needing to be rehoused at short notice. Where do you propose they go?
So the numbers coming out of the Epping Hotel look like it's about 150. There are some other options. I mean, there's the barge you've mentioned. So the barge was ordinarily used to accommodate, I think it was oil and gas workers. So it can equally be used to accommodate asylum seekers.
Closed down because of health issues, wasn't it?
Well, no, actually, there were some water supply issues at the beginning which got fixed. Labour then chose to shut the barge down about a year ago, which I think was a mistake.
It was seen as being inhumane, and some of the people on that boat suffered serious issues. Really, you know, I think, and it was a despicable scene.
I'm sorry, I don't accept your claim it was inhumane. I've already just explained.
It's not my claim. It's others that have referred to it as that.
OK, fine. Well, look, those barges are ordinarily used to accommodate like oil and gas workers and construction workers. Okay. So given that workers are accommodated there ordinarily, to then claim somehow it's inhumane to have illegal immigrants claiming asylum there, I think is frankly a ridiculous thing to say. There are also options with military sites you've mentioned, the Napier Barracks in Folkestone being an example of that, and other countries around Europe have used prefabricated modular accommodation as well.
A lot of those places
lots of different options
will also be open to legal action. But Chris Philp, we really appreciate your time. We know we're taking a bit more time than you expected, but we do appreciate it this morning. Thank you so much.
OK, thank you.